Hey guys, so today we are going to talk about implementing multiple browser tab logouts in your Next apps. So here's what I'm talking about. So let's say this is your app with the login features implemented, right? So you go to the login page and then you log in with your account. And then once you log in, you're able to access the dashboard and the entire app knows that you're logged in. So if you go to the home page, you see that the home page knows you're logged in. You go to the dashboard knows you're logged in, and the about page too. So what I want to implement is let's say you have multiple tabs of your same app open. So you have the dashboard tab open in a new tab, you have the about page open in a new tab, and you also have this home page here. So what we want to do is if we log out from the home page, we want all other tabs to be logged out too. So how do we implement that in Next.js? So the way our app is now, when we log out of our app here, you can see that we have been redirected to the login page. But if we go to the other pages, they are still logged in. So this can cause problems in cases where you have maybe invalidated the user token and then they close the logged out tab and then they continue to use this tab without knowing that they had logged out. So they will get errors and it will be hard to figure out why this is happening unless they refresh the page. So we want to do this for them automatically, right? So let's look at our code here. So here's how I've implemented the login flow here. So we are using server actions. We have a form here that when you submit calls our login server action here. So the login server actions is in actions login. So ideally in your server action here, you could go to the database, compare your email and password, and then redirect back to the home page after authenticating. So right now what we just do, we just set the email cookie to show that we have authenticated the user, and then we redirect the user to the dashboard. So that's pretty much it. So here's what we want to do. We want these three tabs or all tabs of our app to be able to communicate with each other. So one way to do this is through the LocalStorage API. So we'll be able to listen to changes in the LocalStorage API, and then we can read the values and then know if the user has logged in or logged out. So that's pretty simple, right? But the problem with the way Next.js is implemented is there are some APIs that we will not be able to access to make what we want to do work. So for example, we can't access the cookies API because the cookies API is only available to server components. So we have to restructure our app in such a way that we can communicate between the server and the client without having to change much. So how is our logout logic implemented currently? So let's go to the logout button here. So our logout implementation is using server actions. So we have a form which when submitted will call the logout server action, which deletes the cookie and then redirects to the login page. But now this only works for one page. We want this to work for multiple pages. So we have to restructure our logout logic here to move it outside of the server so that we can do what we want. So here's what I mean. So first we need to change this component to a client component. So we add the use client directive at the top of the component, and then we don't need to use server actions anymore. So we want to use event listeners. So we want to add a function. Let's call it on button click. And this function, we want it to call our fetch route here that logs out the user. So our fetch route here will be implemented by a route handler. After we call the fetch route, we can redirect to the logout page. So we can use the router to do that. So let's just import it. So the use router hook. So it's important that we import it from the next navigation import instead of next router. So next navigation is only for app router, and then next router is for pages router. So you have to use the next navigation router. So after the logout succeeds, then we can push the user to the logout page, right? And that is that. So we are doing the same thing we are doing with server actions, but we are now moving it to a route handler so that we can do most of the work on the browser. So let's implement this route handler. So we should add it here under app. So let's call it the logout route.ts. And then we can now export a post function that should just delete the email cookie and then should return maybe a JSON response like that. So we need to import the cookies import here like that. So this should be enough to delete the cookie from the session. And then let's add the on-click handler here to the button. So it should be on button click like that. So let's test it if it works. So let's log in, give random details like that. So once logged in, if we log out, we should be redirected We messed something up. Let's see. Oh, I think we didn't place our logout root properly. Where is it? So it should be under API logout root.ts. I think that's how it's supposed to be. Let's test it. So logout, good. So it should log out the user and then redirect to the login page. Now you want this to happen for all other tabs, so that once you're logged in, we do the same thing for all other tabs. So I mentioned using local storage to do this. So here's how we can implement this in local storage. So we can do it in a use effect hook. So we just need to set event handlers to local storage to listen to new keys being added and then react to them. So what I mean is, after the user logs out here, we set the logout key in local storage. So we can say local storage dot set item, maybe logout, maybe let's just set it to the value of date, right? So that is should be a string. And then in a use effect handler here, we add an event listener for the storage, right? So let's call it on logout changed, something like that. So let's implement this. So on logout change, we just need to listen to the key change. So we just check if the key is the logout key, the same key we are setting here. We refresh the page and we redirect to the login page. So this is the storage event. So that should be all. So the reason why I'm implementing this in our logout button here is that this button will be included in all pages because it's part of the layout. It's part of the nav, which is part of the app layout here. So we include the nav in the layout. So all pages will get access to the nav. So that means all pages will have this event listener. So that's how it will work. So let's just confirm that it works. So let's log in like that. So for all these pages, the home page here is logged in, the dashboard page is logged in, and then the about page is logged in. So if I log out from the home page, then the other pages should be able to log out. So let's try it. So when you click log out, we refresh the page and go to the login page. So if you go to the other pages, then you'll notice that also all the pages have logged out. So that's how you implement it. So the key with Next.js is to move it from server actions and use root handlers. And then you add a root handler that does the logout stuff. And then you call the root handler, which logs out the user. And then you set the local storage key and then refresh the page. And then you listen to changes in the local storage and then refresh the page if the logout key is present. And that's just it. And you've implemented multi-tab logins in a few minutes. So thank you so much for watching and see you in the next video.